Welcome, Reanimated fans, to this week's episode. I'm H.A. Conrad coming to you from Brooklyn, and here, as always, my very much appreciated co host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Hi.
Oh, I forgot to say you were intrepid because you're always intrepid.
Eh,
Also, the intrepid is a fantastic word.
I mean, yes, it is a good word.
Mm. But anyway, how goes it? How are you, Stuart?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Good. It's yeah, doing super great is what I
Yep.
meant to say.
So we are going to wrap up our review of Silo Season 2, the finale. And I have a lot of questions that I think are deliberately going to be. I'm definitely, it's giving Lost finale vibes or Lost last season vibes to me, but we know that it's been renewed, so I think hopefully those mysteries will be solved. But we're gonna dive into that. But we have a couple of little news tidbits before we get to it. So there is yet another reboot of Resident Evil. So um, this is coming to you from another director who was an actor before, Zach Kreger. And look, it looks kind of interesting, but and one of the
Mhm.
big things is that
Why
they
do you say this looks interesting? It's Resident Evil. Like,
well, okay, so
how can Resident Evil potentially look interesting anymore after we've seen it so many
so
times?
I honestly feel like it's almost like comfort food for people, and
Yeah.
that's how I view it, and that's how I view that franchise.
If they were like, oh, Batman's getting remade by a new director, would you be like, oh, interesting, or would you just be like, okay, come on, for Pete's
Well,
sake?
I do kind of feel like that about Superman
Yeah.
and how many do we need? But I also think that people like to just these things are like phoenixes. They keep coming back. They come back because people like them and they find them comforting. In this case, they're staying a little bit more true to the actual game. I don't know what that means entirely, but anyway,
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch it. It's not like I'm not. So
Yeah, like honestly, I don't feel like too many of these movies have strayed really far away from the game. I feel like the show that we watched on from Netflix was the farthest away from the game. It was still pretty good. Not
uh,
that anybody else shared that opinion. What I think is the most interesting thing about this guy, Zach Kreger, is that he's being compared, and I think this is a pretty crazy comparison to Jordan Peele because he
yeah.
was like a web-based comedian actor who's turned director based on like two things that have made it to the screen or he did Barbarians, which was very well received, and he has another project that's about to be released, and now people are fighting for him to do projects. It just feels like Hollywood is a weird place, is really, I
It
think, the
is. And
bottom
I
line.
mean, look, I think that these things happen where somebody is like the hot new thing, hot new franchise, and then things tend to coalesce around them. And I think the jury is out still. I do think that some of the things he's worked on have been incredible, but calling him the new Jordan, I mean, Jordan Peele's had a like it took him a long time to get to where he did, and he has the chops to do it. So I'm gonna just put a pin in this, see how he does. I'm glad he's getting the funding. I'm glad these kinds of projects are getting the funding, but I do think that sometimes people are like, oh, that's the guy and the it guy and or woman,
Yeah.
and then it
And
then it
I
kind of takes
also I can't imagine Jordan Peele doing a Resident Evil remake. Like he's only
no.
done original stuff. He's only done like
Exactly. Well,
yeah.
that's a little bit of why I'm like, I'm not. I feel like these are two very different things, and
Yeah.
honestly, a little offensive to Jordan Peele in my opinion.
I
So
agree.
so
I mean, yeah,
that's
I don't
where I'm
know.
coming from.
I don't know this guy's body. I've never seen Barbarians. It's probably amazing, but I just feel like that's a weird thing for anybody to write. We'll watch it, of course, because we are gluttons, and you know,
Yeah.
we'll see
I
how
also
it.
think it's fine for somebody to make their own name without being compared to somebody else. So that's more. I'm like, let's just let them stand on their own merits and
And
not.
maybe based on an original story that's also, good, like Resident Evil was when it first came out, that we don't have to keep retreading the same ground, I guess.
Correct, correct. Anyway, I heart Jordan Peele. That's all I'm gonna say.
Sure.
Anyway, like let's and then there was another like a trailer from somebody that I'm very, well, both of these people I'm very excited to see something, though the trailer doesn't tell all that much. But this is the trailer for Sinners that came out. So that's directed by Ryan Coogler and starring Michael B. Jordan. It does look beautiful and it looks scary. But the lighting looks amazing. I mean, the cinematography, at least in these edits, look pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But I really have no, I mean, I have no idea what exactly the plot is here.
No, but you kind of
I
get the
think
impression it's Lovecraft Country meets
that's
Salem's
what it
Lot a
feels.
little bit.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And it is very dark, and Michael B. Jordan looks amazing pumping this gun like a champ. There were like several scenes of that, and I'm excited to see what more this has in store for us. But I would say that. But you know what? I'm kind of tired of trailers that tell us everything, so I'm okay
True.
with a trailer that tells us almost nothing. I'd rather be surprised.
Yeah. No, this looks like it's going to be a good time. Despite the fact that we don't know much about the plot. Yeah, sign me up. I'm ready for hype.
And last up, there was a film that debuted a zombie, I guess is what it is, but it's called Didn't Die, and it just premiered at Sundance. And so this is like a COVID related-ish, a pandemic related zomcom. And so that's something that just came out, and um, this is we'll have to see what happens. But the sort of premise of this is that there's like a podcast host all of her through her trials and tribulations, lingering trauma into like an apocalypse and that kind of thing. I mean, it looks interesting. I think we'll obviously watch it.
Is it
But
black and white? Is all the stills I'm seeing are black and white?
I think it might be, or at least pieces of it are.
Huh.
So, we will have to see what happens with this. But this is Sundance, so it's going to take a minute. Like sometimes those things get released into the theaters, but most of the time it goes into like the streaming. So we'll have to see how well it was received. But that's just up on the in the roster. So I thought that was just kind of interesting, mainly because I didn't see anything sort of coming like for this. Like this was sort of a new, um, you know, um, I didn't realize this was going to be premiering at Sundance. And this is with Mirror Menon. That's the director. So anyway, we'll have to keep tabs on that. Add it to our list of things to review. But I'm game as always. Although I know you don't love the zomcoms as much.
This feels more indie. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm kind of interested in this premise of a post-apocalyptic podcast, although they're doing it over the radio and as a in Blair Witch when they use the camera as like a survival mechanism of like I can't deal with reality, so I have to stay looking through the viewfinder. This feels
Yep.
similar to that. Like I can't deal with the apocalypse, so I'm just gonna be podcasting about it all the time.
Yeah.
So I kind
Uh,
of like that approach to horror.
Yeah, me too. And it was a little, I don't know, they're like I I I don't know that this is at all like, but remember Pontypool, that was kind of a
Yeah,
cool
yeah,
thing.
totally.
So
I mean,
that
that was a different, but yeah. No, I think this could be really cool. So we'll keep an eye out for it.
Yep. So anyway, that's it for the news. So we're gonna move into our finale for Silo season two, Into the Fire. And we definitely did go into the fire. And you know, this is everything kind of coming to a head, and things that we suspected came true. Things that were kind of unraveling in the last episode fully unraveled in this one, and lots of mysteries, not solved, but kind of solved, I guess.
Yeah,
But
somewhat, somewhat.
yeah.
Yeah, basically
So
the ultimate doom of Silo 18 is is realized here. You know, it and maybe still could be. Even by the end of this episode because we don't really know. This episode is directed by Amber Temple Moore and written by Eric Avellino, who I think is the showrunner. I believe that's maybe not. I don't remember. Um, it begins though with Peter Nichols, played by, gosh darn it, Jorah Mormont, whose name Ian
Mhm.
Glenn, I think is the actor's name.
Yeah.
He's looking at Juliet's watch that Bernard had given him several episodes ago to keep that relic off the streets, as in a vain attempt to get Nichols on his side to be like, you're a good guy. You don't want Juliet to become a martyr for the cause of the rebellion. And Nichols read in the riot act was like, my daughter is gonna be a symbol no matter what you think, blah blah blah. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, I think it was also Bernard trying to see how where he stood and if he needed to be worried about him too. And Bernard's constantly doing that. I mean, I think he certainly would have used him to his own for his own, misinformation campaign or whatever or propaganda campaign had he been on board with it. And up until this point, Dr. Nichols has very much been a team player in terms of the silo. We've seen all of that. And then
well,
this
it seems
being
like everybody in the medical profession is like a willing or unwilling participant in it, right? Like they're all doing
right,
the fertility stuff.
right. And so
But it's
this
funny, like after the doctor tells him exactly how he feels, there are no repercussions.
right. And I thought
Maybe it's because he goes down through the barricade and he's kind of out of reach.
yeah, I do.
That's how that
And I think
goes.
and I think that's why, in
Yeah,
part, why he's down there, and
yeah.
he's definitely showing his hand in terms of where he's allying himself with, and so yeah, this is just kind of a continuation because he's speaking with Knox and Shirley, and they were like, oh, we have a job for you essentially, and
And Shirley's telling him what Lucas had told her in the previous
right,
episode that Juliet, the last thing that Bernard, this is like this game of telephone.
Mhm.
Bernard told Lucas that he saw the video feed of her going into Silo 17 and before it cut out that she was still alive. And he
Right,
relays this to Shirley and Shirley relays this to Dr. Nichols. And he's like, everybody's always saying this, but from you, I finally believe it. And they're like, yeah, it's probably true. But by the way, we need your help. We've got a mission. And they're like,
right,
hard cut to actually back over to Silo 17,
yep.
where Juliet, Jimmy, and Eater Hope are trying to figure out what are they doing in Jimmy's old apartment? Why are they putting his lunchbox back on the table?
Um,
It's really important that they're there because he has that flashback and remembers the safeguard procedure. Like this is critical to the plot, but why did they go there? Do we remember?
I think that she is I don't
Did she
remember
go there
why.
to find the bag with the suit in it?
I think it was that, but it was also like I thought it was like other information about um
Because they're only in there for like a second, and she's like, "Jimmy, we gotta go."
hmm,
And then he's deep in his flashback, seeing his mom and dad having their conversation. He's talking about eating breakfast. And then as they're trying to leave, he sees that scrap of paper with safeguard protocol written on it or
right,
procedure written on it. And then he's like, "No, I've just remembered. This is huge. We've all got to, we've got to talk about this." And this honestly is a really big deal. This is kind of like saving the day stuff that he's coming up with here, but he's also remembering stuff from when he was 12 that he didn't quite understand even then. So it's a bit of a stretch, but
right.
because none of this is in the what you call it in the vault. None of this is in the what do they call that thing? The legend? No,
Yeah, the whatever it is,
the whatever
the
it is.
key.
Because it's super secret, right? This is only Salvador Quinn's secret code. None of this is written down anywhere, supposedly. I'm not sure how the Silo 17 IT director figured it out. Bernard certainly doesn't know about it. But maybe
Yeah.
that's because in Silo 18 they did that whole delete the drives thing. Maybe they never did that in Silo 17.
Yeah.
They have different history.
So I think they were there to ostensibly, I think, to find that there were extra suits or something that were reserved for. the dad or the mom,
the mom
maybe.
or the dad, and he's looking. He's like, my mom's isn't here,
Yeah,
which also plays into what they did
later.
later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
Hope is like, is there a suit for me? She's still trying to leave. No, no such luck.
yeah. And then he has his great revelation about the protocol, the safeguard protocol. And then we learned a little bit of that from Lucas, about that from Lucas, but now we're getting more of what this was going to be,
Yeah.
and what it was supposed to be. And this is definitely a key piece of information, the safeguard procedure, and that his mom went basically to essentially she sacrificed herself, which is what this was supposed to be, was that it was supposed to kill everybody in the whole silo, if there was rebellion. And we also know, obviously, that that's kind of what was shared with Lucas and why he's so tweaked up or twisted up, right? So,
Right. But this
um,
is my question. So he goes downstairs, talks to the robot voice, comes back upstairs, and is like on a mission to find Bernard. Of course, he doesn't get to him right away because of all the events that happen in between. He gets rolled up in the arrests. But if we can just follow his path here for a moment, like ignoring the plot for a second, or the all the story in between him getting to Bernard,
mhm.
is he convinced that the safeguard is going to be triggered anyway? Like, is he convinced? Is it because he thinks the rebellion has gone too far that he thinks the safeguard is going to be triggered? Is that why he is so fatalistic when he's having that interaction with
A little
Sims?
bit, but he also is trying to, I think, still stave it off when he's going looking for Bernard and then realizes, oh, it's gone too far. Uh,
Because I don't understand where that like switch is for him, where he's telling Bernard. But he's trying to make sure that the algorithm doesn't overhear them because that
yep,
would trigger the safeguard. So
right,
he's like he thinks it hasn't been triggered yet, so he's being very careful to whisper it to him. But by the time he's talking to Common, he's like, it doesn't matter, it's all over. Spend some time with your loved ones. So he
yep,
kind of feels like now it's too late. But in
right.
between those two scenes, something has happened to make him think, it doesn't matter. And I guess it's because people are trying to get out through the cafeteria by then.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't know that he knows about it. I don't know. It to me, it was like a bit of a weird disconnect with his, with him suddenly being like, it's over. I just felt like he kind of got there in a weird nonlinear way to me
Yeah,
for
and
me.
I mean, I think part of this is that they were trying to keep the mystery of what the safeguard procedure actually was.
Yeah. And then once
And I
once
think
the
that's,
audience knew a little more,
yeah,
then it was like, okay, Lucas can be fatalistic now, right? Or
right,
something.
right. And in the meantime, we've got,
I know there's a lot. I did just skip way to the end, but
yeah,
that
yeah,
was to me that was like big question mark I had in watching this was
yeah,
like, why did Lucas suddenly get there?
yeah. And then
Um,
the silo just is devolving into like
oh yeah,
Walker, Knox, and Shirley, they're all like Bernard thinks that he knows the information. It's what we kind of thought before, is that Walker's actually, you know,
well, we still don't know this until halfway. Well, I mean,
yeah,
if you're
but
H.A. Conrad, you know, but if you're a dummy like me, you're watching
uh,
them come up with this plan, and Hank is there talking about they're rolling gunpowder down the hallways, and Billings
well,
and
it felt a
Walker's
little
like, you're gonna
too,
blow up the generator, and we
it
need
felt,
3 hours. They have this plan. It doesn't sound completely believable, but
mhm.
it's somewhat believable. Bernard certainly believes it, and I'm with
Well,
Bernard.
it plays into Bernard's worst fears, so I think that's true.
Yeah. And
Uh,
when Billings is like, I'll lead the first wave, which is not very Billings, not a very Billings thing to say, Bernard's like, I've got you. He sounds like Darth Vader a little bit when he says that, except without the voice. And so that is the big plan. We then we have those poor guys at the gate, who one of them gets squished by the barrel full of concrete, I assume.
yeah.
I do feel like that guy probably could have been given a heads up. Like I feel like Mechanical probably knew that gate was going to get destroyed.
Mm.
Sorry. That guy certainly didn't know what was coming. He might have been the only fatality on their side. I do think there's a huge red flag with this plan of Mechanicals, which is why did they try to fight? Why didn't they
Yeah,
just surrender? Because
right,
if their plan, I mean, I know they didn't want to make it look easy, but
right,
their plan involved a straight up like combat. Like when that scene, it cuts to black, you don't get to see any of the fighting, but Knox is running down the hallway with a giant sledgehammer. Like he's going to murder people, and he's probably, I mean, the Raiders only have billy clubs. They don't have their guns, but we know that they do have guns. That definitely could have ended with a whole bunch of dead people, which would have upended their secret plan, right?
right.
So I don't know why they didn't just say, "Oh, you've got us. You know, you preempted our plan, therefore we surrender." I feel like that could have worked just as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
With less,
But
violence.
that doesn't keep the audience on tenterhooks as much, right? So you got me again, TV.
Yeah.
You win, TV writers, again. I mean, when you're watching that though, HA, don't you weren't like suckered in like when you're watching Shirley and Knox running down a hallway like they're gonna in a fight for their lives. You were thinking, yeah, it's just a trick, really?
Yes. Yes, I was.
I don't know, man. They
I
looked like
was
they were in a
waiting.
fight for their lives.
I was waiting for the worm to turn.
Yeah.
And there had been enough interaction between them and the Raiders and Sims that it felt like there was a subplot going on. Um, and that, was what it is.
I
And
was
then
waiting for a
Walker,
scene of like their dead bodies, like with blood pooling around them in the hallway. I was like, oh gosh, that was yeah,
yeah,
that felt like a miscalculation on their part.
yeah,
And the Sims do have that scene where they're like, "Wow, I think we backed the wrong team." And I was like, "Yeah, I think you did." But
yeah,
because they're really not sure, I feel like it's pretty clear that Camille's
yeah.
like, "Well, maybe that letter will pay off that we sent up." And he's like, "Oh gosh, I sure hope you're right." They're
Mhm.
they're they're wondering if they're gonna be sent to the mines or whatever.
Right. So they have that going on. Then we also have the Walker big reveal, and she gets rebuffed by the love of her life, and Bernard is all gleeful and excited about that because he tries to basically um like out her and be like, she was the one who betrayed all of you. And then when it falls a little flat, obviously for obvious reasons, but for a minute anyway. But when Walker basically goes to him and is like, we tricked you because we have our own sign language because we worked, and I do like that they had their own thing going on. She's like, there were two different conversations happening, and Bernard is just gleeful because it's like she starts to do this dramatic countdown and then nothing happens.
I feel
And
like as soon as she starts to do the monologuing, he should have
yeah,
been like, Amundsen, get in here.
right,
Go call down to the Raiders and get them all upstairs or something. Because
right,
he
right,
should have, he should have known that he had overextended on
right.
some level. Like,
And they did. I mean,
you never send all your reserves, right?
no,
Like that's just bad tactics.
except
Also,
if you're
Amundsen should have known to keep some people upstairs. I don't know.
right. Except if you're Gary Oldman in the
Yeah.
professional, and you want everybody. That's what it felt like.
Everyone.
That's what
Yeah.
it felt like.
Yeah.
A little too much. But in any case, I did like how this all played out. I was very sad though with Pete Nichols because and this is a nit that I do have. So it turns out that their big plot was using him to get past the Raiders, and just to have a reason for coming up in the upper levels with a
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
and or with an injured person, and as his rank of doctor kind of helps grease the wheels, so to speak. And so like it allows him passage in a way that the other people don't have.
Right.
And so what it actually was a subterfuge to basically blow out the steps. And the bomb doesn't work because somehow the timer's missing, which I just thought was dumb.
Well, there's a scene of him dropping it.
Yeah, but still.
I thought when he dropped that timer, I thought he was dropping explosives. I
So
thought
did
he dropped it
I.
on purpose. I was like, oh, he's dropping little bombs. I was like, oh no, he
Yeah,
just
so did
dropped some.
I. He
Yeah.
dropped the timer, but then this part seems so crazy because he's still like, look, he's still a doctor. See, he still has the medical knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that, the person who should have stayed
Was
is
Hank.
him. It should have been Hank.
Yeah, and
Um,
Hank volunteers. He's like, "No way, Hank, you're too
yeah,
valuable."
and it does.
Hank
It's
is
like
just like a dumb cop. He's
yes. Anyway, it's well, and I mean, I get the
uh,
idea that he feels he has not supported Juliet enough,
they
and
should have
that
got Patrick
is
Kennedy out of lockup to come and set off
yes,
the
do
bomb.
this.
That guy's useless.
Yes, but they
Yeah.
didn't, and so it makes me very sad. For one thing, I love this actor and I love that character, and I did want him and Juliet to have a reunion, and that's not going to happen. And it was quite dramatic, the whole thing where he sets this off. I do think Hank would have absolutely died, no matter what. He's like this blast was pretty intense.
It knocked out how many levels of stairs? Like
Yeah,
three?
like three. So I just don't think Hank would have survived this, but he does. And it is satisfying to see Bernard's reaction to this, knowing that all of his raiders are all the way down and that he's stuck upstairs with all the people from Mechanical. And then he's just like, you know what? I'm just gonna see what I'm gonna like. He's still trying to like somehow. There's nothing to do here, and because everything that he's following is now moot. And then he helpfully runs into Lucas finally, and Lucas basically tells him about the sta safeguard. And he whispers or whatever, and then suddenly Bernard's like, you know what? I'm gonna go outside. And like he's holding people off with a gun and like he's just completely done. And I do this all makes sense to me because he now has nothing to follow. So what else is he gonna do? And I do think it's fascinating that he's now essentially following what Meadows was gonna do. And maybe in some ways that's honoring her. I don't know if his thought was to just get out and die.
He gets there pretty quickly, doesn't he?
Yeah, and then it's also like, well, maybe he thinks he's going to get to another silo. I don't know.
No, I think he just was planning to go outside and die. He basically
I,
says as much
yeah,
to Juliet. It's I like the scene also where Amundsen is watching him and so is Sims as Lucas is talking to him. Like they both just have spidey sense to know that
yeah,
something crazy is happening.
yeah.
And but then Sims goes up and is like, "What did Lucas Kyle tell you?" And he's just like, "Oh, hey, right, you wanted to be my shadow. Here you
Go
go.
for
Here's the
it.
key. The code is XYZ. Good luck. Have a great
Peace
time
out.
being my shadow. You were loyal until you weren't."
Yeah, I know.
Like, and you can see on Robert Sims' face, he's just like, "Oh man, now I don't want this job so much."
I know. Well, and then it's like his immediate reaction is to go and talk to Camille, and then they get into the space, and I don't know what they think they're going to do, but
I think his immediate reaction is to go talk to Lucas Kyle, and he puts a gun on him, and Lucas
that's
Kyle is
it.
just like, I'm not scared of you right now because
Yep,
I've basically given up all hope of
yep,
life.
yep, yep.
Yeah. But yeah, and then he takes his wife and kid into the vault. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm here to take over as the vault, protector." And the algorithm has wants no part of it, unfortunately. He's just like, "Yeah, Judge Sims, you and your son gots to go, but Camille can stay."
Mhm.
Her face is kind of a little bit.
Everybody's face is a little like, what?
I mean, I don't know. Her face was a little bit like not unhappy, a little bit
Oh, she
proud.
was happy. She was very happy.
I know. She's like, oh,
Uh-huh.
finally. Of course, she's being separated from her son, so I don't know that any mother would be super pumped. But
Hmm.
anyway, I mean, it shouldn't be forever. But they both know how rough things are about to be in the silo, so
Yep.
I would imagine that they would try to stay inside the vault if they could. But if the algorithm is going to lay down the law, maybe they can't.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we have, all hell's breaking loose in the silo. Everybody's all revolting and whatever. And then we have eventually, it takes a long time to get there, but eventually we have Juliet's triumphant return. And that was very cool.
Well, before we get to that, the Patrick Kennedy stuff, it
Oh,
it goes so fast.
yeah.
Like he has started talking. He's never really stopped talking about. He's always been a pain in the butt. He's always talked about what I saw, I can't unsee, and what I know, you're not going to want to know. Like that was what he was talking about to Billings in the last few episodes. But as soon as they put him in jail, he starts yelling a lot, right? And
Mhm.
then he's like, I saw stuff, and some of you might have seen it too. And as soon as he says that, one of the that sheriff's secretary, whose name we
She said
still
she
don't
saw
know,
it. Yeah.
she's like, "Oh yeah, I might have seen that too." And I'm just like, I just felt like it was a little too convenient
Well, it was convenient, and also would they really listen to him because he's kind of
because
crazy.
he's just a crazy person.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they know that.
And then they have him just whip up this mob way too easily, but also they have shown that the silo is a bit of a powder keg at this point, so maybe mobs are just easy to do
Well, they
in
feel
this
like they've been
environment.
lied to, and I would also say that the big campaign that Mechanical did with their, their propaganda
Yeah.
little balloon that happened. I do think that that's all. People are like scared. They also feel like they've been lied to, and I think they're not going to take it anymore. And so and then there's this idea that, oh, if we've been lied to, and it really is beautiful outside, which is kind of what the thing that uploaded, like the people that had seen it, and there's probably a lot more. I think having the sheriff say that she saw it, or the secretary say that she saw it, there's probably a lot more people that saw it and that they weren't able to round up or didn't know that they saw it. And so that, I think, just foments this incredible wave of inertia that people are going to be like, okay, and we can see that this is almost, we don't know exactly what happened in Silo 18, but we, sorry, in Silo 17, but it's almost a mirror of what happened in Silo 17. From what we can see, is that people similarly got really upset and decided to go out and felt that they had been lied to. And so that was we're seeing history repeat itself
Hmm.
to some extent. The only X factor is Juliet.
We
Um,
also just don't know, like, because Silo 18 did this whole erase their memories thing, we just don't know if Silo 17 went through that. And so that's also a factor that we don't know was repeated in 17. Which has another like element of wait, we not only have we been lied to, we've been like tampered with, which I think would also piss a lot of people off. Like, why are books illegal? Why can't we look at pictures? This is messed
right,
up.
right.
In Silo 17, also when the bomb went off, like the Silo 17 shook, and that was, I think, pretty interesting. The fact that they felt it that far away. And Solo looks at Juliet as like, "You're out of time. We got to go."
Yet they still take their time, but okay.
I mean, they go straight to the vault. They look
Yeah.
for they pull out the suit that they think is the good suit, and it's full of holes,
Yep.
which gives Juliet this great opportunity to make another impassioned speech, which I thought was a really good one, where
Hmm.
she kind of like because Audrey is still being a real
Yeah.
bee to Hope. She blames Hope for the suit being full of holes. She's like,
Yeah,
"It's
which is
probably
like
your fault."
I know. And then Juliet's just had none of it. She's having none of it, and she's like, "Look, we all have to band together. Stop fighting amongst ourselves. Like the only way we're going to get through this is by banding together. Be angry at the people who created it. Don't be angry at each other." And it is a very effective and powerful speech.
I mean, we don't
And
necessarily see Audrey like shake Hope's hand or anything, but hopefully she feels chastised enough to get over her attitude. I think Rick doesn't really need to hear that, but Audrey certainly does.
but the key though here is that the suit she does get is the firefighting suit that they got out of the line
Eventually, right? Because
eventually.
Jimmy has left during the speech, and at first we might be like, oh no, what has Solo done? And Juliet also kind of jumps to the negative conclusion
Yeah.
of what has he done? And she runs off looking for him. And this is a scene that I think we had talked about this before, and
Yeah.
you found this quite touching, right? Like where
Yeah,
he
the two of them, Solo and Juliet, like I do like how there's been a couple like the kids ask whether she's going to come back. Solo asks that, and she's just like, I don't know. And she's not willing to lie to them. And I do think that that is a key thing, even in her speech to the kids, even in this interaction. All the fears that Solo has had, and part of why he doesn't want her to go, is that she's the only friend he's had in this many years, the only person that has supported him. And he is so damaged and he is so stunted but he doesn't want her to go. That's actually more of why he created all these things for her to stay was because he did not want anything bad to happen to her. And the thing is that she can't guarantee that it won't. She needs to go and help her people, but she's honest about the fact that, she's going to try as hard as she can, but she doesn't know what's going to happen. And that's a hard thing, but it's the best thing because everybody's been lied to so much, and so long. And so that is Juliet's superpower. She's just, and that's always been her superpower, is that she is unequivocally a truth teller. And she is not willing to go along with the party line. She's not willing to basically soften this to spare feelings. She's just like, this is the reality. So there's just this moment between them that is so incredible. And I have to say, like Rebecca Ferguson, Steve Zahn, I know I've been gushing about their chemistry, but even this whole interaction between them is just really beautiful. And he really does an incredible job and does a lot of doing things without saying anything. It's very
Yeah.
much like how he acts and
When
his
he
body.
comes up from underwater after testing the fire suit and
Yeah.
she's like really grateful that he's like, he did this to make sure that she wouldn't die outside.
Yep.
And she
Yep.
tries to give him a hug and he still is like, ugh, he can't
Yeah,
be
he
hugged.
can't. He can't.
But
He
she's
can't.
like, look, I'm so grateful. I don't know. Yeah, they have this weird yeah, it's a kinship, but it's a friendship, but it's also odd. She's still very frustrated with him a lot of the time because they do operate on very different wavelengths. Like even when they were in his apartment and he was like taking his time and having flashbacks, you could see her in the background of some of those shots, like bouncing up and down because she was in a hurry to get going.
Yep.
Like the just the way that they even shot those scenes was great, and they are constantly kind of at odds, but also appreciating each other. So yeah, it's been a cool relationship that they've built over the course of these episodes with them together. So we don't yeah, there's basically a goodbye scene in the cafeteria. She says goodbye to the kids. She's like, "You better get out of here."
Hmm.
We don't really get to see her leave Silo 17, but she does say like, "Look, I don't know if I'm gonna be back, but I'll try, I guess." And just as things are getting real bad up in the cafeteria, like Knox and his mechanical buddies are trying to stop Patrick Kennedy and his insane mob goons from breaking into the sheriff's office, which is where Bernard has holed up with one sheriff's deputy, who I guess is going to be the one to let him out, I think is what he's got him in there for.
Hmm.
And Bernard is just sitting there. He's not in his suit. He's just sitting on a chair with his gun, and his suit's in a bag still. And they're about to ram the door open when I don't know that people would actually be paying attention to the screen, but she does just kind of appear on the screen, and people all notice immediately and stop rioting, which I thought was, I mean, it's cool, it's great. I mean, I just don't think that it's necessarily how that would have gone. I feel like maybe they're all just so keyed in on those screens because of living in the silo that they would notice that, but also nothing ever happens on those screens, so why would they be keyed in on them?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know? So, but yeah, she appears on the hillside, and they're like, "Wait, who is that? Could it be?" And then yeah, I mean, it's great. Like it gives you goosebumps, right? She's running toward the camera.
Hmm.
Then you see her face, and she cleans the camera, and then she holds up her little sign. And Bernard notices that they all start cheering outside the door joyfully instead of screaming in anger, and goes and looks inside the prison cell where there's another little screen, and he sees her holding up that sign that says "Not safe outside" or "Don't come
Hmm.
outside, dangerous" or something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then she
But
tries to she tries to open the giant the giant
yeah,
door, and she only has this super tiny little crowbar.
yep. Despite her guns, like her big biceps and her awesome muscles, she
Dude,
just
there's
can't.
no way she was gonna die. Like she was absolutely 100% gonna die in this scene if I assume it's the deputy who actually has to do this because I don't think Bernard
Yeah,
can from inside.
yeah.
But he has taken the time to put on this suit in like 30 seconds because she can't be out there for that long. In the time that she's been trying to open that door, he's gotten suited up, opened the outer door. She's run downstairs, and just in time to get to the bottom of the ramp, he's coming out with his still with his gun. He must have put it down while he was putting his suit on, but the deputy apparently didn't try to take it away from him. Whatever, doesn't matter. TV magic. And they have a conversation about what did they even talk about? Like he's like, I was gonna bring the gun to just in case it hurt too much by the end.
Yep. And yeah.
But then she's like, oh, and he's like, nobody, we never even had a chance. That's
Yep.
why I'm gonna kill myself because there was never a point. This was all stupid. And there's this whole thing called the safeguard. And she goes, procedure. And she starts finishing his sentences,
Yep.
which is how he knows that she has learned things. She persuades him that there might be she suggests to him that there might be a way around it.
Right. Uh,
And then the door starts closing, and she's like, "We got to get in there." And he's like, "No, that's gonna burn us both alive." And she drags him inside. The room starts to fill with flames. She jumps on top of him, and then we don't know what happens next.
right. But she is in a firefighting suit, which we know, but I just don't even think her jumping on top of him is going to save him. So I think he's done. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there will be some kind of an injured scene between the two of them where he tells her something. I don't know. But they cannot kill Juliet, obviously, so she's still alive. And yeah, but I guess there's a lot of questions I have. So, like, Lucas basically seemed to think with the rebellion and with the stairs blown out that there's no stopping the safeguard procedure. But if that was the case, it probably would have already happened.
Yo,
Um,
what's holding it back?
what's the
Why the
trigger at
delay?
this
Yeah,
point? There's a lot of questions I have about the safeguard procedure in Silo 17, which is like, is that what happened to the people when they went out? Like, did something happen where it was able to poison the whatever
yeah.
overarching being, which I'm guessing is an AI, is like monitoring all this? Did it kill the people as they went out of the silo because it didn't want it to infect the other silos? Like,
Because Solo said they went out and they didn't die, not right away. Something that
right,
his mother didn't like
right.
stop them from dying at
But then
first.
obviously in the silo, like that, whatever that was supposed to happen didn't happen because people were able to still come in and they've been trying to get the resources. Like obviously there were a few survivors.
Well, maybe
Um,
not everybody went out the first,
yeah,
at first either.
yeah. So anyway, there's some mystery there about
Yeah.
what works and what would trigger it. So I think hopefully they'll answer some of that in the next one. And like I think was it renewed for more than one season? I think it was
Three and
renewed.
four. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
going to be two more seasons.
so more, even more mystery to solve.
Well, they
But
start to also, I mean, because there's another scene at the end of this episode where we flash back
right.
to some of the reasons why, which Juliet is railing against the people who built this place and put us in it. They're the ones you need to be mad at.
Yep.
And we have a scene with a couple of people in a bar in DC where it's raining and it's outside. It feels like contemporary to today. The guy is going into a bar and gets measured for radiation before he goes inside. And he's like, "Do you ever get a red?" And the bouncer says, "No, not usually." And he goes in and sits down across from a pretty lady. They're both young. And I forget what their names are, but turns out he's a freshman congressman. She's a reporter. He
Mhm.
thinks they're on a date. I think he's a moron because what
Yes.
congressman thinks you're on a date with a
A
journalist?
reporter. Yeah.
She's really just there to talk about the whether there was really a dirty bomb attack on New Orleans or if it was a false flag attack, because that's what she thinks it was, clearly. And he cuts short this non-date because he was bamboozled by this attractive young reporter from the Washington journalism paper. I forget what she said
I
she
don't know
worked
what
for.
she said, but yeah.
But before he goes, he puts down a gift because he was raised that way. And it turns
I
out
don't
to
know.
be a
Did you ever bring a gift on a first blind date? No, you did
and if
not.
it was a gift, would it be a Pez dispenser, H.A.
Well, I
Conrad?
think it's supposed to be the duck.
Well, it's the Pez dispenser that's still in Silo 18.
No, but it's because of where she went to school, right? Like
Oh,
it's
maybe.
the
Well, and
mascot.
now it belongs to Robert Sims' son, and
Which
it's his security Pez
this
dispenser.
thing really, I don't know.
Now it's
That's
been 500 years, and the Pez dispenser is still hanging
yeah,
out.
yeah.
So yeah, we've got this guy, this freshman congressman from Georgia, this journalist. Their stories might still be told some more. There's allegations of domestic terrorism, or was it the Iranians? We don't know. We'll find out more. And then that's the end of the season.
Right. But again, I think these are two of the founders, probably. I really enjoyed this season a lot. I enjoyed all the acting. Couple of plot points where I think you and I are frustrated, but I think it's just a normal part of how you have to tell this story. So you can't do the big reveal about the AI and the you know the whole procedure. That's gonna be the big bad, I guess, to fight in the next one because Bernard's now taken out.
Maybe.
And we're gonna have to see. Oh, he's got to be dead.
I mean, if even if he's not dead, he's not the big bad anymore,
Well,
presumably.
Camille probably is, right? So,
Oh man,
uh,
yeah,
I mean, that's kind of like she has just stepped right into that main spotlight. So I think that that's probably where the tension is going to be.
could be.
And what will be more interesting is to see what happens between her and Sims. Because we do know that his big thing is being locked out, being kept out of things, and essentially that's exactly what just happened here. He's always wanted to be Bernard's shadow, Bernard, like everything, and now he has been locked out of even this honor, despite the fact that he was literally given the keys to the kingdom. So, and he was found wanting us, I guess.
Ouch.
Um, and so, and the only reason for her to be chosen is because, and we get this from Lucas's whole back and forth with Bernard and the fact that something is listening, is that it probably has observed her along the way and identified her as the best chance it has to kind of do whatever magic it needs to do, whatever its directives are. I think that this is going to be it. So I think I'm very curious to see what happens. I'm glad that she's kind of become an interesting player because she became more and more interesting throughout this season.
Yeah,
And so,
considering she was basically a really minor character in season one, and she's been developed into a significant character now in season two. I do enjoy those kinds of arcs. That's cool.
yep. So I guess we will have to see. I will say I do hope that we get more of Steve's on, and I want to hear more about what I think I want there to be more of a reunion with the kids and Steve's on. But I don't know exactly if that will happen or when that will happen. I think eventually it's supposed to happen, but
Hmm.
I just the chemistry that he and Rebecca Ferguson had was just so beautiful
Yeah.
and really just such a pleasure to watch. And again, the cast of this is incredible. Common is awesome, and everybody that. And I'm sad to bid adieu to our Bernard as the big bad, but I just don't see that that's going to have any more like that doesn't seem to have any more mileage on it.
He'll
So
get at least one more scene, at
maybe
least one more scene, and
he's got to have
then
a death scene, right?
he'll get a. Hopefully, he'll get a death scene. If they kill him off screen, I'll be pretty bummed. But yeah, he's been awesome. So, I will. Yeah, I kind of want to keep him around.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's that. I really enjoyed this ride. Can't wait for the next one. And so we will wrap up this review. And if you watched all of this and really enjoyed it or saw other plot things that we missed, feel free to reach out to us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. And we would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, and you can find the rest of our episodes online at reanimated.podbean.com. So we're going to leave behind this dystopian future for our current dystopian present, but we're also going to be going back to really our main fare, which is the undead. Next time, we'll be talking about Salem's Lot, which we had been eagerly anticipating, I think, for about 3 years before it finally got released in 2024.
And with trepidation, we shall watch this and review this now.
I
I,
think, as Stephen King reviewed it, it will be muscular, which I think is
I don't
still the
know.
weirdest adjective to use for a
That is
film.
this is why I'm looking at it with a little bit of trepidation.
Oh no, I'm waiting for a real muscular story. Check
Uh,
back soon. Watch
yes.
this space.
And thank you for listening. Have an awesome rest of your weekend. Ciao.
Toodaloo.